You and ask the question, have you arrived yet? Are you even on the journey? That's probably one of the biggest things that we have to ask ourselves, especially during these days of summer. Probably one of the most difficult things is to keep in that routine, right? To be able to keep in the routine of daily prayer and setting a resolution and going to mass more frequently than just on Sundays. If you've been into that practice, going to adoration still. Same thing with, fulfilling that resolution, doing an examine to see whether or not that resolution went well. So one of the questions we have to ask is, am I on the journey? Am I on the way of holiness? Am I on the journey towards becoming the saint that God created me to be? Or have I taken a little detour and kind of have sloughed off a little bit? We went to the Camino, we made pilgrimage on the Camino, and it took me a couple of weeks to really get back into the home routine, the routine of, spending time and quiet and having that regular time and, a lot of other transitions going on. I shared in a previous live about the life lessons I had learned from Max, who was our almost 12-year-old chocolate Labrador who we had to put down just before we went on pilgrimage. And so he's not around and a part of the daily routine. So a lot of shifting, but all of us go through those shifts and changes in our life. And usually, summertime, for those of us who are parents, it definitely is different than it is during the school year. So that's one of the things. We have to ask that first question. Am I on the path? Am I pursuing holiness? Another thing I wanted to share with you, and it was this little card, the Pilgrim's Prayer. And I'll go ahead and I'll put it into the notes so that way you have access to it. But I'm going to read it. And the reason why is because there are here um, 6 questions for you to consider and to meditate on. And so I invite you to use this Pilgrim's Prayer as a way to reflect on your own journey, your own way towards holiness, because we have those two ways. Think of the cross, the way of holiness. We're pursuing God with all our heart, minds, and soul, just as God is pursuing us as well. And then the way of mission, which is the cross beam of the cross, which is us reaching out to others, just as Jesus reached out and encompassed all of the world as he stretched out his arms on the cross. In the same way, we are called to mission, to be present to our brothers and sisters. But the questions here for your reflection are for you to determine, how well am I doing on that way of holiness? How well am I doing on that way of mission? So I'm going to read. Although I may have traveled all the roads, crossed mountains and valleys from east to west, if I have not discovered the freedom to be myself, I have arrived nowhere. Although I may have shared all of my possessions with people of other languages and cultures, made friends with pilgrims of a thousand, with saints and princes, if I am not capable of forgiving my neighbor tomorrow, I have arrived nowhere. I may have carried my pack from beginning to end, and waited for every pilgrim in need of encouragement, or given my bed to one who arrived later than I, given up my bottle of water in exchange for nothing. If upon returning to my home and work, if I am not able to create brotherhood or to make happiness, peace, and unity, I have arrived nowhere. I have had food and water each day and enjoyed a roof and shower every night, or may have had my injuries well attended. If I have not discovered in all that the love of God, I have arrived nowhere. Although I may have seen all the monuments and contemplated the best sunsets, although I may have learned a greeting in every language or tasted the clear water from every fountain, if I have not discovered who is the author of so much free beauty and so much peace, I have arrived nowhere. If from today I do not continue walking on your path, searching and living according to what I have learned, if from today I do not see in every person, friend, or foe a companion on the Camino, if from today I cannot recognize God, the God of Jesus of Nazareth, as the one God of my life, I have arrived nowhere. So these questions are something that are very powerful for us to meditate and contemplate on. So the whole idea of, if I have not discovered the freedom to be myself, this is something for us to think about. Do I worry about what other people think? Am I concerned about other people recognizing what it is that I've done and giving me praise? Do I think twice before it is that I share my true self? Do I put up barriers? Do I, not trust? Do I not engage? These are all things that are preventing us from being free to be ourselves, to be fully loved, to be known, to be cared for. So that might be something that you need to meditate upon today. The other, if you're not capable of forgiving your neighbor tomorrow, then you've arrived nowhere. Forgiveness is probably one of the most difficult parts of our journey. And our Lord calls us constantly to forgive others. So he did it on the cross. Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Are we able to do the same? Another is about creating brotherhood, being able to create happiness, peace, and unity. And we're only able to create what it is that we have received. God gives us all of these gifts, and it's up to us to then share them. It was just recently in the gospel of where Jesus spoke about all has been freely given to you, so we are to do the same. So are we taking what it is that we've been given and creating a world, a family, a workplace, a community, and where happiness and peace and unity are present? Are we creating brotherhood? If we have not discovered in all of what it is that we experience, all of the injuries, all of the setbacks, all of the blessings, the food, the water, having a roof over our heads, etc. If we're not able to see God's love and care for us, then we've arrived nowhere. So, do we look at the good things as from God, and do we look at the bad things as punishment? That's not how God works. God shines, the sun shines upon the good and the bad. And the rain does the same. It falls upon the good and the evil. So we need to look at all things as God caring for us, giving us what we need, not necessarily what we want. And then, have we been able to discover the author of all the beauty that we experience, of all the peace that we are able to experience and to share with others? Have we recognized that God is the author of all this, not some random, molecules coming together and creating the beautiful mountains or the sky or, stars? This was intentional. Our God is the creator of all things, creator of all beauty. He gives us his peace. Have we recognized that? Have we discovered him? And finally, of course, are we able to see in every person, friend or foe, every person is journeying with us? Are we able to recognize that they are loved and cherished and known just as much as we are by our God? He desires for them to be able to come to know him and love him and serve him as well. Have we been able to recognize that God, Jesus of Nazareth, is the one God of my life? Are we living that way? Are we living as if God, as Jesus, is the Lord of our life? Are we doing that? So here are some gentle reflections for you this week, for you to be able to take and to, especially as we're getting ready to head into next week is July 4th. And it's a beautiful time for us to reflect upon our blessings, not just individually, but collectively as a nation. For all of our faults, and being a historian, I recognize very much that our country is definitely not perfect. But in the midst of it, God has been working and He's brought about great things. There's a reason why we, quote, have an immigration problem. The challenge is that everyone from around the world wants to come to our country. Why? Because there's more opportunity, there's more chance that a life can be better in our nation. So, despite all of the issues, and I'm not saying we ignore them, despite all of those issues, we have the opportunity to be able to give thanks to God for His blessings and for His providence, for His continuing to journey with us as individuals, and then also as a community, as a nation. And as we reflect upon these questions that I shared with you from the Pilgrim's Prayer today, I invite you to reflect upon, am I truly grateful for where it is and who I am and what it is that our Lord is calling me to do? Because that's your vocation. But that conversation is for another day. I hope that this helps you continue to grow closer to our Lord, especially during this summer season. And know of my continued prayers for each and every one of you. God bless.